Allow me to introduce my three friends. The Marlboro Man. Big hat, bigger horse, hacking up along as he rides off into the sunset. A little formal, but a real sweet guy, Mr. Goodbar. And speaking of bars, you are a friend of mine, Jose Cuervo. Now, you may have met one or more of my friends before, but let me tell you, we were tight. They hung out at my place 7 nights a week. You see, I counted on my three friends to help me with a lifelong case of deep and often suicidal depression. My friends turned out not to be friends at all. They had started out as a short-term solution to my problem and had become a long-term problem in their own right. In 2004, I quit smoking for the 487th time, but this time for good. Later that same year, after one too many lost weekends, I said adios to Jose as well. Of course, this meant I had to double down on Mr. Goodbar. I had him bring over some of his friends. "Hey, Greg," he said, "meet Mr. Good Burrito." And Mr. Good, God, that's a lot of ice cream. I ballooned to almost 300 pounds. Picture me as I am now, only pregnant, with 9-year-old twins. But I got lucky. I got a disease of the colon called diverticulitis. Doc said, "Greg, if this doesn't clear up, we're going to cut open your side, take out a chunk of your large intestine, and hang a plastic bag there to catch the waste products of digestion." I went in for a CAT scan. Had me lie on a cold, hard metal slab, shoved me into a darkened tube, and told me to lie very still. I had spent much of my life thinking I wanted to die, but as I laid there, doing my best cadaver impression, thinking of my wife and 3 young kids at home, contemplating eating myself to death and dying with a bag of poop hanging out of my side, I began to have second thoughts. In fact, I went home determined to change, but I had a lot to learn. I went to the health food store. There was an entire shelf of agave syrup. Jose spoke up. "Hey, Greg, I am made of agave syrup. You see, tequila is a health food." No gracias, Jose. And I persevered. I discovered that cauliflower is not just albino broccoli, and Brussels sprouts aren't just tragically premature little cabbages. I learned to make green smoothies, and that if you put a handful of fresh red strawberries in a green smoothie, you get a brown smoothie. Do you know what a brown smoothie looks like? Well, a chocolate shake. What were you thinking? And I persevered. I began to use the elliptical machine at the gym, then to walk, and eventually to run. The Marlboro Man spoke up. "Hey, Greg, if you just like being out of breath, let me introduce you to my friends, emphysema and lung cancer." No thanks, Marlboro Man. And I persevered. As my physical health improved, I began to turn my attention to my mental health. I learned that I could control my thoughts, and in so doing, manage my emotional states. Slowly, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, I began to climb out of the pit of depression in which I had spent so much of my life. I had been on a downward spiral of sickness and misery, and a short, unhappy life appeared to be my fate. Now I found myself riding an exhilarating upward spiral of health and vitality, and a long, healthy, happy life became my destiny. Less than a year after my diagnosis, 125 pounds lighter, I completed the 26.2-mile Humboldt Redwoods Marathon. Fortunately, the diverticulitis had cleared up, so I wasn't forced to run the whole way with a colostomy bag flapping at my side. I used to sit down to mountains of nachos. Now I climb real mountains, Mount Whitney, Mount Fuji, Half Dome. I used to eat food from industrial plants. Now I eat real plants, having transitioned to a whole food vegan diet. Did this mean that my long journey was over? Nothing is ever over. The black dog of depression still howls outside my door from time to time. But with vigilance and perseverance, I've learned to keep him outside where he belongs. So why am I telling you all of this? Is it to show you how remarkable I am? Hardly. Rather, I'm here with a message of profound hope. Because if I can lose almost half my body weight, keep it off for 13 years, and become an endurance athlete, then perhaps you too can realize your health goals. If I can say goodbye to the Marlboro Man, Mr. Goodbar, and Jose Cuervo, then maybe you too can conquer your addictions. And if I can recover from a lifelong case of chronic clinical depression, then perhaps you too can live a life of joy. I invite you to live your life passionately and embrace all that life has to offer. Just be careful who you call your friends.